All right. Let's see. Hello, everybody. Let's see. Um, Hi, everyone. Before we start, I just want to make sure with all the technical stuff that everybody can hear and see us. So if you guys don't mind, there's a little chat box, or you guys have an option to sort of raise your hand. Just give us a sign that you can see us. Okay, I think I'm starting to see. Cool. Thank you. Thank you. So one other thing, I want to do one other thing here. I want to see if we can go. Audrey, are we live there or no? Okay, guys, 1 second. I want to make sure that we are live on Facebook as well. And that has been a bit of a challenge for me. So give me just 1 second and we get this done. And then we have a great webinar for you guys today that I will present in 1 second. All right.
Hi, everyone, while we're waiting.
Yes,
Thank you for
Amanda.
joining us. Um, I'm excited to be joining you guys. And, please bring all the brand questions. I'm here to answer all of your fashion brand questions, brand in general, futures of brands. I'm just excited to be joining Bose right now. I see we're live, Bose. I see it in the corner.
All right. So we're live there as well. All right. Now we can start. So how's everybody doing today? Hopefully everybody is feeling good. They started well here in New York. It's a bit gray, a little cold, but we're in a cozy place. It's fun. Amanda, how you doing?
I'm well. I am
Very good.
And, I'm excited to be joining you today. I can't complain, even though we had a very moist couple of days here in New York. And,
Yes.
now it's a little chilly, but hey, you know what? 'Tis life. We're here, we're breathing, and that's all that matters.
Exactly.
You know.
So a little bit of sort of housekeeping for everybody who's maybe it's not the first time that you're on this platform with us. So to give you an idea, obviously you see us on the screen if you're on your computer. A couple of things under the screen. There are a couple of buttons that I would like for you guys to be aware of. One of them is the Q&A. So at the end of the presentation, or the lovely talk that me and Amanda are going to have, we'll open the mic for Q&A. So you'll have the option of come and talk to us. We can bring you live here on the screen with video, without a video, if somebody's up for it. And if not, there's that little button that says Q&A, and you guys can just type your question throughout the webinar. We'll look at it at the end, and we'll look at all the questions and answer them. There's also an option for those who don't really have a question in mind, but want to look at the question, maybe rate them. This way we'll know, in case we're running out of time, which one of the questions are really important for more people for us to address first. And the other thing is there's a little chat box up there where you guys can interact with each other, share links. If we'll, feel the need to share any link of something we talk about, it'll be here. That's pretty much it. Outside of that, let us introduce ourselves. So my name is Boaz David. I'm the founder of Human Bee. For those of you who don't know much about Human Bee, we are a design, development, and production company. We are based in New York. We've been in the industry as a company for about 10 years. Me personally, over 20 years in New York in the fashion industry. And I do these monthly webinars with really the goal of inspiring designers, empowering designers, and giving you the tools to build a strong brand. So whether it's things that we do here in the company that we talk about, or sometimes like today, we're bringing experienced guests who knows one or two things about the industry and how to build brands. and they'll share their experience, share the wisdom, hopefully inspire you. Hopefully, in an hour from now, you guys are going to be smarter and be able to do better decisions in your business, that's what we want. All right, so let's get to today's subject. Today, we are going to talk about building a brand strategy for your fashion business. And I'm very, I'm very happy to have Amanda. And Amanda, I think it's time to really introduce you the right way. So Amanda McIntyre has been involved in brand development for, I believe, over 15 years. She'll tell you a little bit more. But
Yeah.
what I like about her experience is that she worked with different creatives in different fields. So not necessarily just fashion, there's music, there's films, there's other industries there. So her experience of working with creative people is something that I found really interesting. Amanda and I met, she was until not long ago the ambassador and the one who's organizing an awesome meetup here in New York called Women's in Wearables. And this is where we met. I had the pleasure of being interviewed on a panel with Amanda, and that led us to bring her here and share her experience with you. So Amanda,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So as Boaz has already said, I'm Amanda McIntyre Chavis. I was the New York ambassador for Women of Wearables, Women of Wearable Technology as a whole. Until recently, I just actually stepped down to focus on my own tech ventures for this year. I have a brand agency, a brand development and interactive management agency that focuses on creative ventures. And when we say creative ventures, it can span from fashion all the way up to technology. Even though ironically, recently we've been approached also by real estate because, they just wanted to find an innovative way to be able to really approach their clients as well. So it's been very interesting as far as that, and we're getting the word out more about how to bring awareness to your brand. And we help everything from brand management to brand development for the big guys, for the big companies. We also do crisis management. We help with project management. We help you on a global scale, not just local. As an agency, we are somewhat of a boutique agency, but what's different about us is that, so we have a core of about 6 people. But what I do is I actually build teams around each client. So we really have a really big network of over 35 freelancers, experts, you name it. And we build according to what our clients' needs are. So, because we know that not everyone's brand story is the same. Not everyone's needs are the same. Someone might come to me about personal branding, and that's going to be very different than what Samsung comes to me about, or a Bose would come to me about, so we wouldn't use necessarily the same team to work with both sides. And that's how we've structured our business differently, because we realized that having that rigid structure, that one size fit all type of structure, doesn't work for everyone, and so that's what we're based on. That's how we work. And we work with people from all sizes. I have to say my personal favorite is the diamond in the roughs, the startups, the independent artists, just because it's incredible to be a part of that journey and see where they go, and that we help them grow, so we're very excited about a lot of things that are coming. A lot of buckets there, a lot of creative buckets that we're involved in, but that's what keeps us excited and challenged.
It's true. It's a lot of the things that I enjoy and really we enjoy doing here. And I like what you talked about when you talked about the fact that, there's not one size fits all, because the way that we have things done here is pretty much with that same thought in mind. Every brand, and I say this to every designer that we work with, that regardless if we did a similar product or even a similar category in the past, your product is going to be different. Your business is going to be different. Your business model is going to be different. Your business is going to need different pieces to get to that finish line than, and not a business who might be even competing in the same market as you. And I think that that's really what makes a business interesting.
Yeah.
And that's really what makes it fun for us as well. You know, sometimes it's not the easiest work from the ground up, but it is the most rewarding. So, you know, you guys and us sharing a lot of the similar point of views. So
Yes.
if we're talking about working with creative people,
Right.
one of the things that from, you know, from working with mostly in the fashion industry, what I've noticed and saw is that creative people are great at being creative.
Right.
Building a brand is it's a whole different side of our brain. It's a whole, you know, different set of rules and
Hmm.
skills. Um, what did you see as the challenges really when creatives are going to that stage of wanting to build their own brand?
Well, I like to say, I think that one of the challenges I've realized with working, even particularly with some of my fashion clients, you know, sometimes it's really about awareness and engagement. People being aware of their brand, and then how do you engage? How do you find your next client, your next customer, your next partner? And that's usually the question that I get, you know, outside of the bare bone basics, which is, okay, should I be copywriting certain things? Should I be trademarking certain things? Should I do this legal, this, that, and the fourth? And yeah, those are very important as well. But I think it's really important that you kind of hone in on what your brand is going to be. Um, because, and I know we're going to chat about that as well, but it's going to be important for us to kind of hone into that, just because of the fact that that is how you connect with and engage your audience. You've got to know who you're connecting with. You know, sometimes I think a lot of designers and founders across the board, sometimes you kind of do a broad stroke where you're just like, I just want people. You know,
See
I
that
just
all the time. Yeah.
know me, that's it. And I totally get it. But at the same time, as you hone in your brand story, then people can kind of gravitate to you, because now they understand your mindset. Now they understand your brand, and it makes it so much easier to connect.
I think that's, you know, that's, if I would say one of the biggest, um, I don't know if I want to say mistakes, but one of the things that commonly we see is that exactly it. And especially if, you know, things don't work as well at the beginning, pressure starts to, you
Yes.
know, to come up, and then, you know, they lose their focus. Even if they started maybe with some, hey, this is going to be my target customer and everything is in place there and there's clarity, if things
Absolutely.
don't work, instead of looking, adjusting, it becomes like, okay, let's just throw things and see what happens.
Yes. And sometimes, I mean, it does take a little bit longer, but I tell people all the time, no, stay in your own lane, because your lane is clear. When you start veering into other lanes, that's when it becomes more complicated. And this is where you're going to run. You're going to have competition regardless in anything in life. You're going to have competition.
True.
But you know, at the same time, then you start losing your brand authenticity when you keep swerving in and out of other people's lanes. You know, and while it may take longer in your lane, understand that it's clear in front of you. And so now, you know, take your time going down. You know, taking time on that journey. You know, being patient with yourself. Just because you're not seeing it pop right off the bat does not mean that it's not working. It just means that there's going to be a little more effort needed. And sometimes what I find with brands across the board is that they veer into these different lanes and then they get lost. And they're like, well, how do I get back on track? So I always say, be wary of that. If you're really good, don't get me wrong. If you see a lane and you know you're really good at it, or you think that it's really going to help your business, by all means, it's okay to explore. But in early stages, you don't want to do that too much, because again, you're muddying the waters and you're not very clear on where you're going. And if you're not clear as the founder, the designer of your brand, then your consumers are not going to be clear as well. And then that's when you're going to have problems with maintaining them and having repeat customers.
Very much. And I, you know, another thing I just want to add to it is that you, I find it really hard to get feedback, right feedback and good conclusions And listen, you might pick this path,
Mhm.
and at some point you realize, it's not working. I really need to steer left or right, and that's fine. By the way, we're not saying, hey, you pick and die with it. We just say
Right.
pick something and go with it, and but get feedback. Now, when I get feedback driving in this lane the whole time, now my feedback is very focused. I
Yes.
know where I'm getting it from the same, from the same audience. It's easier for me to get great conclusion and really improve. And if it at the end it's not my lane, okay, let's see what's around it. Regardless, I'll know more about what I can offer and what's out there. So yes,
Yeah.
that's definitely one of the biggest challenges with. And by the way, correct me if I'm wrong. I think sometimes bigger brands find themselves in this
Oh,
mud as well.
absolutely. I mean, the other thing is that especially in 2020, you're going to see that some big box brands, they're trying to become more niche. Part of it's because they've become so broad that they're having a disconnect with their consumers and their customers. So now they're actually looking at how small businesses and medium-sized businesses are operating because they want to re-engage. They want to have a better connection to their consumers and their customers. And they realize that a lot of customers and consumers want more customized, a more customized approach, a more personal type of customer service. You know what I mean? The days of having horrible customer service, like that's a no-no in 2020.
Very
You can
much.
pick your brand very quickly just by having bad customer service and not responding and everything else. And this is something that the big box brands struggle with. So I say learn from it. If you're a small guy and you're just coming on and you're just a startup, learn from some of these big brand mistakes. See what they're doing. The other thing I wanted to just mention earlier too is just to piggyback off what you said. As we all know, no journey is a straight journey. There's going to be twists and turns and changes, and you just got to kind of adjust accordingly. But what I'm talking about here is sometimes, and don't get me wrong, for some brands, it has happened where they've taken a hard left, completely, left what they were originally going to do, and it worked for them. But what I'm saying is that, you don't want to be swerving back and forth to the point where you haven't given enough time to see if it's really going to work. That's the problem.
And it's funny. I've seen a few times where it looked like they were almost there, and then they just lost patience and took a
Yes.
turn. And if they had a little bit more patience, they probably would, come across this big thing that no one else went into. So you really don't know what will happen. I think that's part of our problem as humans. We try to predict the future and we want
Yeah,
to get there.
true.
And that's that's regardless if we're in the creative field or in our personal life.
Yeah, I mean, and that's constant, and truthfully, that's a constant across the board from music to fashion. Is that sometimes you get a little impatient with yourself, you get frustrated. That is a part of just being a creative mind. We're crazy. I mean, that's the truth. We're all a little crazy. We wouldn't be brilliant and creative if we weren't, right? So,
Sure.
but we're also our biggest critics. We are our harshest critics, and we have to speak a little bit more kindly to ourselves. Because meanwhile, there's other people who are loving what we're doing. There are other people who are seeing what we're doing and moving forward and inspired by the effort. You know what I mean? And so, sometimes the people, looking in on what you're doing and seeing that you're making in strides towards your goal. And meanwhile, we're feeling stuck,
True.
and which is the reason why I always suggest having a mentor or having a colleague or, and I mean, it's great to have friends, but sometimes you need to have somebody in your space, another founder, someone else who's gone through these challenges to really speak to. And so this is the reason why I always suggest looking into meetups, looking into founders groups and different things like that, because that outside voice could really say, hey, you know what, actually, you're not that far, keep going. You know what I mean? Or maybe not do this because it doesn't really seem to be working for you. you know, but ultimately at the end of the day, trust yourself, because you're going to get a lot of critique. You're going to get a lot of advice, but at the end of the day, you have to really trust where you're going and trust yourself that you're making the right decision.
That's true. Having this, you know, we lose perspective always sometimes, you know, on the road there. I want to actually touch on this comparison of, you know, our audience is usually at that early stage of building their brands. And I know that one of the things that when they look into the market that they're going into, they see all these big brands. And many times from talking to a lot of these individuals, they cannot not compare themselves to the big brand. And many times it comes from the perspective of, well, this big brand has a name, this big brand has resources, and so on and so on and so on. And I know from a mindset perspective, it's definitely not a helpful thing. But if we want to talk really on the on actual things, what are the things that you think are advantages for a small brand that just starting out and breaking into a market, as opposed to those who've been, the dinosaurs been there for a long time?
Well, I mean, first of all, flexibility. I mean, there's a few more things that small businesses, independent artists, independent designers can do that big box can't. And you hear me keep saying big box because a lot of these bigger brands are retail brands, you know, and so basically, you know, what I would say is just as a small guy, you have the advantage of taking your time. And the reason why I say that, because see, with the bigger brands, they are pressured to constantly bring out product. They are pressured constantly to make sure that things are coming out. And yeah, they can do things on a much larger scale, on a global scale, and all that good stuff. But they don't necessarily have the flexibility to pivot as quickly as a small business can. We're also not as on the same time restraint, you know, to kind of pump out product on a quarterly basis. You know, you can really take your time to kind of work and see, how can I collaborate with this partner? How can I work with this design? Can I get this model to wear a piece for me? Does it make sense for me to showcase here locally? Should I expand? There are a lot of different things that you can actually test the market, you know, as a smaller guy, whereas with the bigger brand, yes, they could test the market, but really it's going to be more in the sense of focus groups. They can't really like sit down and do like a show or anything like that, because of course they're going to get major criticism for something they just wanted to see if it's going to work. Whereas you may do something, get some criticism back, but guess what? You can come right back and say, okay, we wanted to test this. We found out, we got your feedback. Maybe that didn't work, or maybe it was great, but now on to the next. Big brands can't do that. And the resources, as far as resources, yes, there's a lot more money there in the big brands. However, when it comes down to small brands, and just what I love about small and medium-sized businesses and brands, is that we are so innovative. We find so many different ways to get the word out, to get things done. We have no choice because we don't have the same dollar spend that a big brand has. You know what I mean? So that's some of the advantages. You know, I think we need to take, and the other thing is, I'm going to say this, you don't want to keep comparing yourself to a big brand. So a lot of these big brands have been around for many, many years. They've made many, many mistakes. You are a startup, you're a baby, you're just learning. It's like comparing your, you know, 2 minutes to 20 years. It's really not realistic to compare the two. Now, if you want to talk about your quality of your product in comparison to a big brand, now that's different. You can do it bigger and better. And when I say bigger and better, you can learn from the mistakes of those brands and say, this is how I make a quality line, you know, that would surpass what the big brands are doing.
Sure. And I think that that's what you said about mistakes is the reality is, you know, even as a small brand, if you think that, oh my God, every mistake is gonna, you know, kill me, At the end of the day, you can still make these mistakes and you know, fix and move on. Bigger brand, they almost don't have that room.
Right.
One thing they'll do wrong or one thing they'll try and it doesn't work and it affects a lot more. And especially nowadays, I believe that it's a great time for smaller brands and really in every field, because technology changed a lot of things for how we do business. And a lot of the bigger brands, if I'll take it, for example, to our industry, a lot of the brands, the bigger ones, have been doing things the same way for a million years.
Yes.
They are forced to change, whether they want, whether they like it, it doesn't matter, they need to. Even if we think about, you know, implementing more sustainability into their brand. If any of you follow my weekly mailing where I send all these links for articles about fashion, you probably noticed that a lot of the big brands that are talking about being sustainable, they have plans to get there in 5, 6, 10 years from now. They can't just turn the switch and get there. As a small brand, you have an advantage. You can do things that are going to be part of the future and you can do them now. So I believe if you're creative enough and you really believe in what you're doing, you have an advantage actually, as opposed to being a big brand. So yeah, I'm with you on this.
Well, the other thing I just want to touch on too, just talking a little bit about sustainability, but I'm going to talk about sustainability in the sense of maintaining and being in the marketplace. The reason why I'm talking about this is because I'm going to give you a perfect example, going back even to L Brands, because as we know, they just sold.
Right.
Part of this is because they didn't have the flexibility. They weren't changing as quickly with the times. You know what I mean? When it comes down to technology, to what the consumer needs and everything else. And this is, if you're noticing, there's more and more stores that are closing. There are more and more lines that are consolidating. And the reason why is because, and this is where you as a startup or early stage have the advantage, you have the opportunity to scale up. Whereas a big brand, mostly they've scaled already a few times over. So all they can really do is expand their product line, expand their reach globally, stuff like that. And so a lot of these big brands too, some of them are dying off because they don't know how to expand. They don't know who else they should reach. And they don't have the same flexibility that small and medium-sized brands do. You know, so even to the point that big brands are now considering breaking up certain departments or breaking up some of their portfolio so that they can operate more on a niche level. So again, that's why we have the benefit. Now I know at the same time, everybody's like, but we don't have the money to do this. We don't have the money to. We don't have the resources to do this. You know, and I completely get the pain points on that too. You know, but we'll talk about that in a moment as Boz and I continue this conversation. But really wanted to let you know that you do have, there are some advantages of being small and medium, but also in the back of your mind, think about the scalability of your brand, because that's going to be very important. You do not want to necessarily stay in that state. You really want to grow, but you also have to set yourself up to be able to grow.
True. And I think that this is really where you come, you know, your creativity as a creative person should come up, not just in the designs, but being creative as a person and come up with great ideas. That's part of it. And honestly, it's fun. Try it.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about brand story.
Yes.
So I know that, and I would even, you know, talk about myself, coming up with brand stories is something that I always struggle with. And I see this with a lot of brands today and over the years that I work with them, that coming up with that story of what am I about, what's my purpose, all of these things is something that's hard for them to put together. So I've sort of a couple of questions. First of all, if you can give us an idea, just for we're all on the same page, what really brand story means.
Well, brand story is basically your authentic way, your particular authentic way, your story to be able to connect with your consumer. You're going to give them a direct snapshot of the why of your brand. Okay. And, so when people talk about brand story, this is what it is, your authentic way of engaging and connecting with your consumer and getting them to understand what your brand is about. Okay. So when you're thinking about that, think about the why. Why did you decide to start this line outside of just loving to do design, outside of, saying, hey, I thought that would be a great dress, shirt, hat, whatever the case may be. There is a why of you decided to do this and move forward, whether it's fashion or fashion tech. There's a why behind it. You either saw that there was a need in the market, and why was there a need in the market? You know what I mean? So that is going to be a part of your brand story, but also a little bit about your passion, what your background is. It kind of gets intertwined in your brand story, whether you think about it or not. You're kind of like, okay, for instance, I'm going to talk, like with No Nets. Hi, Kathy. I don't know if you guys are watching, but one thing about No Nets is that, they're talking about getting chafe, swimwear and getting chafe and then board shorts or swim shorts and things like that. There's a purpose there. There's a reason why. Her son went through it or a family member went through it. This is why the concept came up. For every brand, there's a reason why they started it, and that needs to be a part of your brand story.
I agree. I mean, you really need to think about your customer and think what value you give them. And
Yes.
then, your story a lot of times relates to that. So you have, let's say, you came up with a brand story. How do you go about building a brand strategy from there? What are the things, at least, that you want to think of when you go into that next step?
Okay, so again, now we're talking about the engagement, right? So basically, that next step. So you figured out your story. Let's say, for instance, you have a moisture wicking sundress that you decided you wanted to bring to market. Again, moisture wicking sundress, obviously it's a dress that's going to keep you cool and dry during the summer. And so, people you will want to connect with, maybe people who are near the beach, maybe your audience is in California where it's hot and warm all the time. People who just want every day just something to throw on quickly to run their errands during the day during the summer. Ironically, that can branch out to moisture wicking, materials for the winter, the layers and things like that, and so forth and so on. And now you're building on that. So one way to connect, I would say, as a brand is obviously it's all about cool and dry, right? So find some fun ways outside of just showcasing all your product. Find some fun ways to incorporate cool and dry. You know what I mean? Whether that's a meme, whether that's a video, whether that's, like showing a pear sweating in the summer and the apple's cool looking, like just having some fun with it is really important to engage your audience. The other thing is, absolutely do focus groups, absolutely do fittings. Getting people involved is very important from the beginning. I find that when brands are getting people involved from the beginning and saying, hey guys, do you like this, with some A/B testing, or even a small show or a small event to kind of feel it and stuff like that, and then showcasing that on your Instagram, on your social, on your website, where it shows that you're really interested in getting feedback right from the beginning. I find that the engagement actually goes up from there. And now don't get me wrong, I also know as a beginning, as a founder, sometimes you're afraid, like, well, I don't want to I'm not ready. I don't want someone to steal my idea. There's so many little things that you are concerned and you're in your own head about. And so you got to get out of your own head, you know what I mean? Out of your own way. and kind of just say, okay, well, let me try out these things, because at the end of the day, it's like the tree falling in the forest, right? You know, and there's no one there to hear it, doesn't exist. So you've got to kind of get out of your own way and get out there and just put some content out there to engage your audience, okay? And also, again, if it was me and has this moisture wicking situation, I might travel to Cali or Hawaii or somewhere where it's really warm and engage with some folks there and see what their feedback would be for it as well.
Makes sense. Guys, are you just want to get and see if you guys have any questions, and what do you guys feel so far about the subject, and if anything else, because we're getting towards the end of the conversation. I just want to make sure that if there's anything that we are not covering, you guys want to hear about, maybe we can still do that. So one of the things is really going back to the subject. Let's say we created a brand strategy. I think the next thing is the execution of that strategy. And there's that part of going and doing stuff, and then there's this other part that attached to it is, how do I really know how do I get feedback or some sort of understanding what's working, what's not, if I'm on the right path, if I should stay on this lane or not, like anything that you can share with us to really sort of, how do we test this strategy? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask.
Well, just to get back a little bit to the strategy, I mean, I know that I did a very general idea of like, okay, how can you test it in the market and get things started? And most designers have already done that. You know, most designers think about that right from the beginning. But the thing is that sometimes it's not cohesive across the board. So before I go into the second part of your question, I would say also just making sure as a brand that everything's cohesive from website all the way to social media, and that you actually have a plan of how you're rolling everything out. Because sometimes what happens is that a lot of people get very excited about this product and you just throw everything out there. You don't really think about like, okay, when am I going to promote it? I'm going to put it out in 3 weeks. Maybe I need to get on all my platforms and make them aware that this is coming out. Maybe I need to do some type of promotion, maybe buy a Facebook ad, Google ad, or whatever to bring awareness around this. You know, because I find that a lot of brands, fashion or otherwise, sometimes just throw things to see if they'll stick. And then there's no other plan around it, and then get upset because, oops, it didn't work, or, oh, nobody knows about it, or I really didn't get the feedback I wanted. And part of it, it really is about preparation. So I wanted to mention that right from the beginning, because it is going to be important for your execution, which we're going to talk about. This preparation is so important. And, you know, of course, it's a little different as a fashion designer. There are different steps, obviously, from the actual design itself to getting it produced to manufacturing and all that other stuff. And that's a whole nother conversation. So there are all these little steps, and we're kind of skipping those steps. But, you know, just planning and giving time and everything else, because now you got to get your piece back from manufacturer. If it is hand sewn or it's something that you are creating at home, there's going to be some other things you want to do, maybe multiple sizes you need to create, and therefore you need time to be able to produce it. And while you're trying to produce it, what I'm saying is build awareness around it during that time while you're trying to produce it or receive it, so that it's not just falling on deaf ears when you actually get the product. So that's the one thing I wanted to mention before I go into execution. Okay, so preparation, you know, people say, oh, that person's lucky, and you know the whole phrase about preparation and luck, right? Okay, yes. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. And now as far as execution, I have to say this, and this is just for everybody. Follow up and follow through are so important. There are so many people who basically, you know, sometimes it just falls in the cracks, you know what I mean? There's been times that I've worked with a lot of upcoming designers who, some of them are very great with the follow-ups, but at the same time, they can't hit their benchmarks for certain things, and then the production falls behind. It's really important for you to set benchmarks, reminders, or at least get somebody, if you don't have a team yet, get someone who's going to keep you honest and stay on course, because the follow through is key to all of this for your execution, your brand execution. Or at the very least, if you're not really good with that, try to find a team that helps, another agency, a friend that's really good at organization. That's going to be really important when it comes down to the execution of it. The other part is there are a lot of moving parts when it comes down to execution. Even like when we're doing events and things like that, from people being aware of the event to just the logistics, where's everybody changing? Where are you going to be able to steam your clothes and store your clothes so that things aren't being, touched? Is this the proper venue? Is the venue going to be big enough for you? These type of things that as you're trying to launch your product, are important, and the small little bitty pieces can be sometimes was detrimental to your launch or detrimental to your brand execution. Okay, so take the time, really spell it out. Take a moment, spell it out, write it out, put it in your Click app, whatever it is, for all of those pieces to be taken care of. The other part is this: you don't have to do everything yourself. Okay, we as founders, this is our baby. And sometimes we don't want to share our baby, if you know that you're not good about something, ego aside, toss the ego aside and find somebody who's really good at it. Okay. That is going to help you with your execution. And you need to be able to find somebody who's going to be able to help with your marketing, help with your promo, all of that type of good stuff. Okay. That's going to help you. And also, again, keep benchmarks, because now if you do have a team, you want to keep them honest as well. Okay. So I know that was a lot, but
no, it's actually there's some great points here, because I wrote myself a couple of notes, because I think these are things that are very important to remember. First of all, I like the idea of having somebody, whether it's your team, whether it's outside person, whoever, something, it could be whatever that is, that's going to hold you accountable. Yes. Because we are very good in like, oh, no one saw that. I can skip, not do that. And right. The reality is, when there's pressure and there's things, sometimes we just, either we forget, either we just don't have the strength. But even if you just told a friend, an advice that I can give a lot of you really when it comes to accountability, find someone where on a daily or weekly basis, you talk, even if for 5-10 minutes, or send an email with things that you are planning to do, that this person can come back and say, hey, did you do that? Right. Because you will not believe how much more motivated or how much more you're going to hold on to those promises to execute them. And sometimes these little things can make a difference. So I think that's a great point. And the preparation as well. I think that what you said about the fact that, sometimes it's so easy to see someone who's already succeeded and think, oh my God, they got lucky, or they knew what to do. Mm-hmm. Trust me, I bet you if you'll go back to their early stage until they had no idea what they did. They had some clarity of where they wanted to go, and they were, strategically working with it. But it's not that, one day they woke up, they turned the switch and everything worked out. So they prepared, they adjusted, they looked at these benchmarks, they looked at these milestones. And that's really what's going to keep you making sure that, you're on the right path to where you need to go. So yeah, these are all great things.
So I saw a couple of questions pop up.
Yes, I do. And I just actually, we're about to wrap our conversation, and then we can jump into these questions, if you don't mind. So what I'd like to know more about you guys, really, how do you, if someone now interested in working with you, someone will start to work with you, what are sort of like, if you guys can walk us a little bit through at least the first steps of what this might look like?
Well, especially if you're early, you're just beginning your startup or early stage, you know, one of the things we do is get to know you. We get to know, but we chat and talk with you about what your passion is, why you decided you started this particular project. Kind of walk through. We don't like to make assumptions. We want to walk through, what have you done already? You know, branding is so much more than the logo and a website. It really is.
Sure.
It's a promo. I mean, sometimes we see that marketed that way. Branding is basically your logo and your website
Sure.
and that and the fourth, and that's all cosmetics. You know, really what we work on is the meat and potatoes behind the cosmetics. We work on, okay, so you're bringing something to the market. Have you tested the market? What do you think is wrong with the market that you want to do? What is to solve? You know, what is to solve the problem that you're trying to solve with this particular brand idea? What are some of the steps you've taken already? Has there been some challenges? Has there been some successes? These are things that we do with every client, you know, regardless of whether they are a startup or whether they're big box or really established. We ask those questions. We ask, you're coming to us because there's a problem that you need to be solved. Okay. And we also understand and respect that you are solving a problem as a brand. So that is our first steps, is kind of just going through what has been done already, because we're not going to reinvent the wheel. If something worked really well for you, then we're just going to really build upon that. If there was something that was a real challenge for you, then let's find the solution to that as well. You know, so that's like phase one. Phase one is just making sure we understand where you're trying to go, what your vision is, and where you're hoping your goal is going to be, like what your goal is for the next, I don't know, 5 years, even 2 years. It could be the next 6 months, really. But just your overall goal and where you'd like to be going. We also look at your brand as a whole. If you're a startup, there's probably not going to be a big footprint because you're just starting. If you're early stage, you've done some work. So now we're going to look at everything from social media to your presence on your website to, you know, simply Googling you and seeing what pops up, because this gives us a little bit of a story, a little bit of a history, know what has worked, what hasn't, outside of just speaking with you about it. Okay, and that will help us now move forward with setting up a brand strategy for you. And so that's usually phase one for me. It's just going through all of that, getting you prepared for success, setting a foundation, because you have a lot of different agencies, different things. There are a lot of us out there, but sometimes, you know, it's not enough to just solve the problem that the consumer or the client is bringing to us. We've got to really look at it, because we may be building on a faulty foundation. And the last thing we want to do is work with you on this project and then it falls short because there was something we missed. You know what I mean? I like to leave you better than when we first started. So I have to make sure that your foundation is strong. And sometimes it gets a little frustrating because it's like, but we've done this already. And then I have to say, well, unfortunately not well enough because it's not sticking. It's not, you know, firm. So we have to kind of firm that up so that as you're building, you know that you're building off of a firm foundation.
I agree. I think, you know, when I started this company, although what we deliver is really the products at the end of the day, development, production, the first questions that I've asked since day one, anyone that was interested in even working with us, is really to understand what the brand is all about, where they want to position themselves, if they have a brand story. And many times, you know, the response was, what does that has to do with the product? And I agree with you 100%, because if this is not in place, then getting your product is not going to solve a problem. It's just going to get you product. You want the right product. You want a product that's going to fit your business. You want whatever it is that your company or our company, any other company out there is hired to help you. If your foundation is not there, then we might do our best, but just like you said, we're basing it on something that is rotten to begin with.
Right.
And, you know, it's time to look at it, even if it's uncomfortable. And maybe you did this, but maybe with a fresh eyes, someone else can look at it and realize little things, could be minor things that you didn't pay attention to. So I love that. I think that's really how any relationship between two companies should start, really.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, any relationship, period.
That's true. That's true.
Because, you know, sometimes we make assumptions instead of just
That's
asking.
true.
And if we would just simply ask the question and listen, we probably get a whole lot more from any relationship.
That's very true. That's very true. I agree 100% on that. Cool. So we have a few questions that I'd like to address. And I see here, so I see, first of all, again, if anybody has other questions, please put them down here and we'll get to them. If any of you want to just jump on this call, we'll bring you up. Again, if you're not comfortable with a video, even just voice, sometimes it's a lot easier to have a conversation, because then we can find out some more things and maybe give even better answers that will help everybody. So if anybody's interested, let us know. You know, I can bring you up. But the first thing that I see here is from Rahila. I think Rahila, that's how you pronounce your name. Sorry if you already discussed this. If you are a founder, do you have to share your personal story as your brand story, or how closely do they have to be related? Is your brand story the same as the ideal customer you are designing for?
Well, the first one, I will say, as far as the brand story and your personal story, well, for most brands, the reason why you are building a brand is because something personal happened, something in your life, or something that you directly experienced. And so that's often interwoven into your brand story, the why of it. Like I said, whether it's because a niece or nephew or you personally struggled with an item of clothing, or you saw another design and it's like, that's not very well designed, that's not very practical. You know, so like something like that, it's definitely, you definitely have some type of personal story involved in it. I will say more so personal experience, not necessarily like your full background, but just a personal experience. Most brands, there's a personal experience there. And that is the reason, that's the why of, you know, bringing your brand to light. So, you know, you don't necessarily have to have your full background into it, because, you know, maybe you're not from a fashion background, and that's really, it's irrelevant to your brand itself. But the experience usually is interwoven into your brand story. And so, you know, that's the relationship there. Now,
Actually, Amanda.
Yeah.
Mahila is actually would like to come on the call, so we can have that talk with her right here. We can have her probably ask more questions and find out a little bit more. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Yeah. This way, your answers can be even more directed. So, Rahila, I just think I sent you an invitation. If you want to click on it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. I really appreciate you guys doing this seminar. It's been very informative. So
Awesome.
it's a pleasure to meet both of you.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
So,
yeah, that's true. My personal story, it was, I am creating a fashion brand directed at, you know, modest fashion. And it was because of experiences that I had. I guess I was just thinking that, like, there's so much about like focusing on the founders and things like that. I wanted to make my company more about like the customer and like helping them achieve what they can achieve through my clothing and become their best selves through what I'm trying to offer. So,
do you mind, to the degree that you can, do you mind sharing a little bit about it so we'll get a better idea of, maybe we can give you a better direction if you're okay with sharing a little bit more about the product concept, whatever.
Yeah, I guess I was starting to do this exercise of creating my brand story, and I, you know, was born and raised in California. I, you know, dress modestly. People don't necessarily think of me as like a California girl, but I consider myself a California girl because I love my state. I love going out to the beach and doing all the other things Californians do. I love Trader Joe's, all that stuff. And so when I was writing my brand story, I was trying to bring those things into it. but I just wasn't sure like if that was the best approach to a brand story or.
Well, it's more about your experience of the real why.
So yeah, the why was that I was having trouble finding clothes that first of all I felt comfortable wearing. And now, you know, I'm not the same size I was when I was younger. So that's also another added challenge. And then the modesty aspect. And then also, so I just started taking fashion classes, and then I learned so much about like the sustainability issues, ethical production issues. And I'm like, if I'm going to do something from like a spiritual standpoint, it has to be like, for me, spiritually consistent on all levels. Like I can't treat people or not pay people properly and treat them badly just to get my clothes made. So then all of these issues came into my brand. And so
what you just mentioned is actually your brand story right there.
Okay.
Your experience, the reason why, the fact that you want to treat people well, you want people to feel good and be treated well. That is a part of your brand story. That is something that you want the consumer to know. You're trying to be transparent. You want them to know that you're thinking about sustainability, you know, and how it impacts the environment. And, you know, and you're a modest California girl, and you didn't want to be doing all the flashy, and this is who I am, you know, and I mean, still fashion forward. I'm modest, yet still fashion forward. That is your brand story. Now, the rest of your background, the fact that you do the Trader Joe's and everything else, that is more of your bio. Like you could add that as a fun fact of your bio. You know, sometimes I'll list everything out, like, you know, what our accomplishments have been and blah, 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 blah. But I find for bios these days, you want to have a little bit more personality, a little more background, and what's fun for you. You know what I mean? And so that part I would add to your bio, your founder's bio. You don't, as a brand, have to incorporate your founder's bio into your brand story unless it's absolutely relevant to the reason why you're creating this brand. You know, really, I think they should be separate. You know, so the people, because at the end of the day, your brand story is something you want your consumers to relate to.
Okay.
Relate to your bio, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that, if you don't mind me adding as well, I think from what you're describing, really what led to your brand is a personal experience that you had. Is that correct, right? So in my opinion, that part should really connect you and the brand. And because think about it this way, you're not most likely, if you decide to go and solve this problem, you're not the only one who's facing it. And you realize that there's other people out there who are facing similar or maybe the exact same problem.
Right.
So if I'm one of them and you're going to tell me your story and what led you to this, I'm hooked.
Yes.
Because, oh my God, she's facing the same thing as I am. I want to know how she solved it. And maybe she can solve it for me as well. So it's not necessarily your history as, you know, your work history, but more of like what led you to that is really where the story and how you are going to do this better and different than anything else that is out there. I think that's really where you're going to get me to want to listen to you. And I'll tell you more than that. I think that for what I've seen, the brands who came from that, from really trying to solve a personal need of the owner or a group of people that they found that are missing something, are usually the ones who are able to build something big, because sometimes we don't even realize how many people around us are facing the same thing. Nobody's doing anything about it.
I mean, that's how the Lululemons and the Spiritual Gangsters started. You know what I mean? It came from an experience. Like, you know what? I didn't really like the way this yoga clothing fit or that fit and that, you know, or I got chafed here or didn't wash well. It became kind of, you know, seedy when I washed it and kind of got the piles, and now I don't like that. And so, you know, again, that comes from that experience. So that experience that you just told us is what needs to be incorporated in the brand story, but not necessarily, as Lois just mentioned, your history, your school, and all that stuff. That stuff stays in your founder's bio. if that makes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I actually wrote something up, but I don't know how much time you guys have. If there's anyone else who has a question.
I think I'd love to, but I think we're got already to the end of the hour. So
okay, no problem.
If you want to share it with us, we can look and see if we can give you some feedback after. But because I just want to make sure to answer other questions as well.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Thank you for coming up.
Thank you so much for taking my call.
You're welcome.
All right. So the next question that I see here is
I don't know how to stop my call.
I think I need to stop you.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys.
If I can do this, I should be able to do this. See, that's the type of thing that I need to learn how to do. But
wait, but now, Bose, wasn't there another? Hold on one moment.
There was another question.
And
then, there might be another one in the chat, but I want to just, because I saw another question earlier and I want to answer it if we can.
Just before you go into that, because it was just a small piece really quickly, that she mentioned about, does the brand story need to be the same as the ideal customer? I say just, Rahila, if you're still connected, yes, you need to, well, to a degree, yes and no. I'll just say really quickly that it is going to be somewhat a part of your brand story, because obviously you're going to be designing clothes for people who like the modesty, who wants to keep things simple. So yes, that will be a part of your brand story, but that does not necessarily mean that it's going to keep everybody in a box, so to speak. I hope that makes sense. You know, so yeah, you can certainly let them know this is what your vision is. You're really, really already going to let them know that this is what the core audience is. Someone obviously who's more modest, wants to keep fashion simple, but still forward. In comparison to someone who may be a bit more outrageous, want flashy colors and want a little extra, like Jeremy Scott or something like that. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Just because we reached our hour, I just want to, for those of you who might need to leave, I'm going to share in the chat Amanda's information, or website, the company's website, the Legend Factory, and her email in case somebody want to reach out, find out more. This is here before we move into the rest of the questions that we have here.
Okay.
And I hope it's okay with you, Amanda.
That's fine. No worries.
Went ahead and did that. So Kate Holly is asking, can you shed some insight on the idea of someone might steal my ID? Being new, I do struggle with this sometimes. So I'm assuming you're asking, by sharing your story, someone might steal your ID. I'm assuming that's what she means.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking probably she's more concerned about protecting her design and protecting her,
yes.
And her whole idea as a whole. You know, I totally understand, you know, about that concern 100%. You're going to have a lot of people, you know, who are going to be concerned about sharing. And some people actually get frightened to the point where they don't put anything online because they're really afraid that someone's going to walk away with their idea. We somewhat have to get out of our own heads a little bit about that. I mean, there are certainly ways that you can trademark, copy and stuff like that, to try to protect your ideas as best as possible, so that you also don't have people making duplicates or what's the word I'm looking for, bootlegs of your product. You know, but you know, honestly, it's really tough to kind of keep people from trying to do that. What I usually try to tell people for brands is to really establish yourself as much as possible online. And why I say this is because there's a couple of things. Once you've established yourself online and you have a footprint online, that never goes away, guys. That's why they say don't do sketchy stuff online, because it never goes away. Even if someone deletes a website or a picture or whatever, it never goes away. But it also gives you proof that you can present in the court, in a legal system, that you have established yourself, that that you have done this at a certain point. Let's say, for instance, you put a dress up online in 2015. 2017, someone comes out with a similar design or an outright copy of it. You can actually go back and it shows that you actually put that design out in 2015. And you could put a cease and desist, you could do a takedown order, you can do a bunch of different legal things. That's a whole nother conversation about the legal stuff. But one thing I don't want you to do is get frozen in fear to the point where you're not producing and you're not putting your stuff out there. There are different ways to protect it. If before you launch, you want other people to check out your materials, you can also keep things private and share a particular link. This way they have to log in order to do it. That's a way for you to protect it and also be able to see who's accessed your designs and things like that as well. So there are different ways around this to help you protect your design, but at the same time, you can't be scared of it, because at the end of the day, there are a million designs out here, and truthfully, it is seldom a brand new out of space design that no one's ever done before. There has always been a derivative of something, okay? Because obviously, even with your design, you are inspired by something, right? So, don't get so protective that you're unproductive. There's ways around it. Like I said, a sign-in, keeping things private, friends and family until you do your launch, something like that. There's plenty of ways that you can protect your work.
And I'll just add one other thing that I know sometimes people are not sure how to take it. I love if someone's copying me. That means I'm doing something right. Like if we're talking about getting feedback, hey,
Yeah.
if a bigger brand now realize that I have something there, that means I have something good. So yes, going back to what Amanda said, there are things that you can protect yourself before you put yourself out there, and that's the way you want to think of. So whether it's an intellectual property attorney you want to talk to and see to what degree any of these things can be protected. We spoke about it a lot, and I even had an attorney in one of the webinars. The reality is when it comes to the design, there's only so much that can be protected. So, there's not much that you can do. You can maybe protect the technology or something that really was invented by you from scratch.
Right.
But I do like, not to encourage anybody to copy, but, if we think about, for example, the athleisure world, the fact that everybody saw Lululemon and decided, oh my God, they're doing very good, and we should all start adding that component. See what happened to the athleisure. All of a sudden, this whole athleisure thing became the biggest thing ever, because the rest of the brands now decided to promote this. So in a way, copying you sometimes can actually add, if you have your things in place, it might actually support you and help push that idea in front of people. And you know what? If nothing, it motivates you to be even more creative. But that's just a different take of all of that.
If let's say a big brand decides to take your idea and copy it, yes, it sucks. It does. And initially it sucks.
Sure.
And if they decide to do that. But here's the thing, just remember what I said before. Big brands can't pivot as easy as you can. So they've taken your idea. How can you one-up them in a sense? What else can be added to your design that will make you unique? What can you do that will help you market and promote your design differently than they would? So there are things you can do now that maybe they copied it and their copy sucks. And now you are like, yeah, the quality is horrible, and this is what makes mine more superior. This is the reason why I can do this so much better. And yes, I can customize it for my client, for my customer. Whereas, that the big brand is going to be basically, copy and paste and manufactured accordingly. So just keep that in mind as you're building. That's why I said don't be too afraid about that, because there's certain ways that you can circumvent that. If push comes to shove and it's something that's really unique and you have a patent or something for it, now that's a whole nother thing. And then I would suggest then getting legal advice for that, because they can certainly go after them for that and potentially, work.
Sure. And the other thing is just, if you really want to think about this whole thing from a positive perspective, sometimes bigger brands, it's easier for them to see you develop something, get it to a certain degree, and then offer you a partnership or, you know, buy your business or anything like that. Because for them to do it on their own, even if it's a great idea, sometimes it's just like Amanda said, it's just too much. They need to bring a department now, and they have to spend money and time. And yes, they have the resources, but they also look at things, you know, from different aspects. And sometimes it's easier for them to see, oh, this is a great idea. Let this brand, they'll watch you, and they'll let you go through this stages of building, and then you'll get, you know, the best of both worlds. They'll join you. So there's a lot of good things that this can be looked at a perspective. Like Amanda said, I wouldn't let this discourage you by any means.
Listen, you have I'm going to say it wrong, LVMH and two other brands right now that are working on incubators, and they're looking for designers such as yourself to ideas, and they are paying you to bring these things in. They are giving you the resources, because just as Lois said, they don't really have the time to really be developing that. And they much rather be able to bring in, buy in smaller brands, independent designers to help them develop this type of stuff and then go move forward. So it very much could be a plus.
Very much. Cool. Anybody else has any question for us before we wrap it up? A little bit over time. But
you're very welcome, Kathy.
You're welcome. I think that's it. Amanda, anything else you would like to add before we wrap this up? I'm gonna, just for all of you who are interested in getting in touch with Amanda, I shared the information here, and the follow-up email with the recordings, I will send the same information. So anybody want to check out Legend Factory and find out more about Amanda, get in touch with her, see if she can help you with the stage that you're in. You'll get that information. I know some of you join us on Facebook, so thank you, and it looks like it worked, which makes me very happy.
Wonderful.
And yeah, so anything else, Amanda?
Well, I want to just say thank you both for having me. Thank everyone who's joined. We are very excited on working on a couple of different things, including a wearable tech venture, you know, another social media venture that we're working on. And then with Legend Factory, you know, we are excited about expanding. You know, please do go to the website. Our website's going to be updated in the next few weeks, so you could get a better idea of how everything works, because we want to make sure it's very clear and transparent on the options service-wise that we can provide. But, you know, definitely please do look out for us. Please reach out with any additional questions. You know, myself or Dana will be able to reach out, or one of our other team members too, to help answer some questions. And I can also you can follow me on, if you just want to see some of my quotes and ramblings, I'm on Instagram. We're at legendfactory.co on Instagram, as well as Amanda McChavis. So it's kind of like a hybrid of my last name, Amanda MC Chavis, on Instagram and all platforms. That's Amanda McChavis for my personal, and legendfactory.co on all platforms as well.
That's cool. So we can share that as well in the follow-up email for everyone.
Yes.
Amanda, thank you very much. I appreciate
you
taking the time.
We were able to put everything together, and
yes.
Technology was by our side today.
Absolutely. And we didn't even get the chance to touch on technology and fashion, which I know is another space that you familiar with. So I encourage anybody out there who's working in that space and needs some advice, guidance. Amanda, that's a space that she's operating there as well. To all of you guys, thank you very much for joining us. I wish you good luck with wherever you are and whatever you're doing. And I hope to see you guys soon. Have a good week and a great weekend.
Guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.